Okay. Um, Use will in administrative tools to diagnose networking issues. Mainly when we have network issues is because usually our network is not isolated. So what is network isolation? Okay, that's the reason we will explain. Network isolation is something that is a network that each device is obviously, as the name says, isolate. So for example, in this case, we have this device. Even though when this section are, well, imagine that this is a computer. Even though when this section is just one network, each part they have their own, they are isolated. They are isolated by their MAC address and the port. So if, for example, if I want to put my printer, I need to put exactly in this port because I set up in that manner. I need to put my port 1, that is my printer, and I need to specify what is the MAC address for that specific device. So that's the reason how the network isolation does the job. It's very important that the network access from the gateway, for example, can have these kind of features. For example, the protocol Ethernet 802.3 tokens and so on. Well, what is the reason we are talking about this network isolation? Well, it's because with that we have an ARP. We can have an ARP spoofing and switches. So, well, okay, what exactly is an ARP? Yeah, well, an ARP, with the ARP, the attacker can save, record, inject, or manipulate data. With this ARP, doesn't need any authentication. So, well, what is the reason ARP was made? Well, before the all this huge internet and many devices that we are using, ARP was made thinking that our local devices are trustworthy, but nowadays you know that is not the case. Why? Because now, for example, if we have, as again, we can explain that part, that imagine that this is our network and we are obviously sharing our Wi-Fi network with our family, for example, you know that are your strong your for example your brother, and you know that sometimes he doesn't know about the security issues and he goes always for websites that are very dangerous and can get a malware, and if he get the malware, usually it will be spread for all the network. So that's the reason we need to be sure that that our devices are isolated. um, for example, you can actually download some software uh, that it can just cut off or stop these kind of problems. For example, the TuxCut, find from this website. You can, for example, TuxCut is a utility that protects the Linux computers against ARPS-proof attacks. Okay, well, this is um, just for Linux system operating Linux. Well, they obviously hide, for example, your MAC address in order that this, the the attacker can enter to your device. There is another tool. Obviously, it's just for Linux too. The SniffDet is a remote sniffer detection tool library. But if you have, for example, a Windows SARP.net, you can find the software in order that you can protect yourself from sniffing. Okay, but what is the reason? It's very important all of these things because obviously with ARP, when someone goes to your computer and use ARP, uh, he can enter to your system operating, and he can knows about the your IP address and the physical address. So that is something that you can use too. Is try to use dynamic IPs in order that the attacker can obviously, for example, if he enter one time, okay, but the next time he needs to know about the IP address, and if it's dynamic, he won't know what is the next IP address when you enter your session. Uh, for example, now if you have a router, it's better that you can use well, usually, for example, for Cisco routers, it's better use this Catalyst 6500 release. Is usually for port security. Try to be sure that all your devices you are working with use this protocol uh, that is and is the that use the protocol 802.1ae that defines connectionless data confidentiality and integrity for media access in the dependent protocols. Uh, you can use another another software from Cisco, well, or a physical router to avoid, for example, snooping. And finally, well, as always, you can use VPNs. With VPNs, you can just send your information to the cloud, and even hackers, you will be protected from hackers or even the own government. The government, if you want, he wants to know the information about you, he won't. It will be very hard if you are using VPNs. Okay, we will come back to the next topic. Discuss how new software systems are made to work with a variety of legacy platforms and architectures. Well, before to start this topic, does well, maybe you will think that what is the reason I first give the point 2 instead to point 1? Well, because obviously I wanted to be sure that we will use the necessary tools. Well, we need to know what kind of attacker we will have in order to protect us or use the specific software to protect us against these attacks. So there is a tool, a software that I found very interesting and have uh, everything in just once. So protect the legacy platform and even the architectures. Is the DDWRT. This software is very useful. Well, you need to download and install it for your routers or access points. So you need to be sure what kind of access points you can use in order that it can be compatible with this software. What exactly this software offer? Well, I can show you some snapshots because actually I don't have a router at home. Um, so, for example, usually you can have a lot of setups with this software. For example, the connection type. You can actually put the name of the, well, this in this case is the name of the router. Well, the router is obviously DDWRT, and you can change your IP address. In this case, are statics. And another very useful feature that I found is, for example, you can actually change your RAID access point. For example, if you don't want to share, if you think that you just want to share your access point just in your room, for example, or in a specific place, and you can just go on. You can just reduce the power of your. You can just reduce the power of milliwatts in order that just the access point can just reduce the extension of the area that they can cover and offer internet. So if you put, for example, 100, usually the default is 71. So for example, or if you want to share your network in an extensive area, you can put 100. So the antenna will give, obviously will have a more power to the antenna in order to extend the area of the covering or the internet. But I don't recommend that you, for example, if usually for access points, it's not the best way is try to don't use more than 100, because if you use more than 100, well, you can just the access point can break down. Another section that I found interesting is that You can measure all the traffic by month or by day. You can check how much income of outgoings of megabytes are on the traffic. What exactly you were doing. For example, in the day 3 of that month, use more. You have more incoming traffic. For example, maybe you were watching some videos. And then another section that I found interesting is the bandwidth monitoring. So you can check how much how much how much megas are you using in your internet. For example, if you're watching some videos, you will see the peak when you start the click with a YouTube video, and obviously reduce to have a to get the stability, because in this part is just loading, and after that is just processing the video. And another section is UPnP. In this part, you can see, for example, the description about your IP address, if it's enabled, and if you are in the, for example, in a specific LAN or WAN, and what kind of protocol are you using. And well, and the best part is that you can enable or disable your UPnP service. Another part is the quality of service. This is very good. For example, if you have for example, if you usually play with in the net video games in 3D, you can just optimize for video gaming and just put check here. The quality is obviously just to give some specific websites that they can improve the quality of the service, and then others not. And well, as I told you before, you can just go to the website to dd/wrt.com, and you can check if your router is compatible with this software. Finally, well, the most important is the VLAN, or the VPNs that you can use, and you can just put a specific MAC to the specific port. And it's very interesting because that's the way you can just set up your net, and you can have a network isolation.